The cabin lights had dimmed. That soft, golden glow that makes everyone look calm, even if their hearts are restless. Sophia pressed her forehead against the cold airplane window. Tiny clouds drifted below like mountains of cotton. She could see her reflection, messy blonde hair, sleepy eyes, and the blue ribbon her mom had tied before the flight. "Try to rest, sweetheart," her mom, Evelyn, whispered, brushing a strand of hair from Sophia's cheek. Sophia nodded. "I'm not tired." But within minutes, the gentle hum of the engines lulled her into dreams. Somewhere over the Atlantic, the night deepened. Outside, the sky turned velvet black, scattered with stars that looked close enough to touch. Everything was quiet. The kind of quiet that feels almost too perfect. Then, ding. The seatbelt sign blinked on. At first, no one thought much of it. Turbulence, maybe. A few people straightened in their seats. Someone yawned. But then came the second sound, something sharp, urgent, metallic. Like a distant knock inside the belly of the plane. The flight attendants exchanged glances. Their smiles vanished, replaced by that professional calm that only makes you more nervous. "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain's voice crackled through the intercom, steady but strained. "This is your captain speaking. We're experiencing a minor technical issue, but everything is under control." A lie. Everyone could hear the edge in his voice. Sophia stirred awake. "Mom? What's happening?" "Nothing, baby. Go back to sleep," Evelyn whispered, clutching her daughter's hand just a little tighter. But the plane jolted again. A violent shudder this time. The overhead compartments rattled. Someone gasped. Sophia's heart started pounding. The smell of coffee and recycled air filled her nose. The cabin lights flickered. Then came the announcement that froze everyone. The captain's voice, sharper now, louder, almost trembling. "If there is any fighter pilot on board, please come to the cockpit immediately." Silence. No one moved. Just wide eyes. Murmurs. "Did he just say fighter pilot?" someone whispered. Sophia looked up at her mom. "What's a fighter pilot?" Evelyn's lips parted, but no words came out. The air felt heavy now, thick with fear and confusion. Even the flight attendants stopped pretending everything was fine. One of them, Michael, rushed down the aisle, whispering something into the intercom phone. The captain's door stayed closed. Outside, lightning flashed, white veins slicing through the clouds. For a split second, Sophia saw her own reflection again in the window. But this time, she swore she saw someone else's shadow beside her. Minutes felt like hours. A man in a worn leather jacket, gray streaks in his hair, sharp eyes, slowly stood up near the back. He hesitated, looked down at his trembling hands. Then he said softly, "I was a fighter pilot." Heads turned. Gasps. Sophia's heartbeat thudded in her ears as the man began walking toward the front. Each step echoing down the aisle. The sound of his boots, steady, deliberate. Evelyn pulled Sophia close, whispering, "It's okay. Everything's going to be okay." But deep down, she didn't sound sure. And then, the plane lurched again. Lights went out completely. Darkness swallowed everything. A scream pierced the air. And somewhere near the cockpit, a door slammed open. Thought balloon. What do you think the captain saw, or knew, that made him ask for a fighter pilot? Darkness. The kind that makes you forget which way is up. Screams echoed. Someone shouted for the flight attendants. A baby cried. The engines roared louder, like thunder trapped inside metal wings. Then, flicker. The lights came back, faint and shaky. The man in the leather jacket was still standing in the aisle. He looked calm, but his eyes, sharp, focused, like he'd just stepped back into a world he thought he'd left behind. "Sir." Michael, the flight attendant, called out. "Are you Robert Hayes?" the man interrupted, his voice deep, steady. "U.S. Air Force. Retired." People around him whispered. "A retired pilot? Here. Robert moved quickly down the aisle. Every step felt heavier, slower. Sophia watched him pass, her small hand gripping her mother's sleeve. He stopped beside them for just a second. Sophia could see the faint scar above his eyebrow, the kind that looked like it had a story behind it. "You'll be all right," he said softly. His voice was steady, almost comforting. And then he was gone, disappearing toward the cockpit. The captain's door opened, and for a split second, Sophia saw inside. Flashing red lights, warning alarms, and the captain himself, sweat dripping down his temple as he tried to stabilize the controls. Then the door shut. Evelyn exhaled shakily. "What's happening?" someone behind them asked. A flight attendant whispered, "Electrical failure. And maybe something else." Something else. Those words hung in the air like smoke. Outside, lightning cracked again, lighting up the cabin. Sophia turned to the window, and for just a moment, she thought she saw something moving outside. Not clouds. Not light. Something darker. Something following them. She blinked. It was gone. In the cockpit, the radio hissed with static. "Engine 2 is unresponsive," the co-pilot said, voice trembling. "I know," Captain John Marshall snapped, twisting a dial. "Altitude's dropping. We've lost pressure in the right wing stabilizer." Robert stepped in quietly. "Sir," John said, turning. "You're the fighter pilot." "Used to be," Robert answered. "You asked for one." John hesitated, then nodded toward the co-pilot's seat. "Take over monitoring. We've got a military drone tracking error. It's messing with our systems. It's like it's trying to dock or sink." Robert frowned. "That's not possible. Unless..." A sudden bang cut him off. The plane tilted left. Back in the cabin, people screamed again. Luggage tumbled from overhead bins. A man's coffee cup shattered on the floor. Sophia held onto her mother's arm. "Mom, I'm scared." "I know, honey, I know," Evelyn whispered, tears in her eyes. "Just hold on." The plane steadied again, but barely. Then came another announcement, the captain's voice, this time tight and urgent. "Everyone remain seated. We have a critical situation. Please stay calm." Robert leaned closer to the captain, whispering, "It's not just a failure, is it?" The captain met his eyes, and in that silent moment, everything changed. "No," John said. "Something's out there." Meanwhile, back in the cabin, Sophia's curiosity burned through her fear. She pressed her face to the glass again, scanning the darkness. At first, there was nothing. Then, a flash. A metallic shadow gliding beside the plane. Small, fast. Its lights blinking red, then vanishing. "Mom," she whispered. There's another plane." Evelyn frowned. "Sweetheart, there can't be." And then, the whole plane shuddered again, as if something had clipped its wing. The oxygen masks dropped. Screams filled the air. Evelyn pulled the mask over Sophia's face, her own hands trembling. "Don't let go," she whispered. Sophia nodded, eyes wide, heart racing. Through the mask, she could still hear the captain shouting commands over the intercom. And somewhere up front, Robert's voice, steady but tense. "Captain, whatever's flying next to us, it's not commercial and it's not friendly." The cabin went dead silent again. Every passenger was frozen. Even the air felt like it was holding its breath. Then, outside the window, a red light blinked once, twice, and began to close in. Thought balloon, if you saw something chasing your plane in the middle of the night, would you look? Or would you keep your eyes shut and pray it was just the clouds? The red light blinked once more. Then vanished. The plane felt weightless for a moment, that strange, floating calm before the next drop of chaos. Sophia's small fingers clutched the armrest. Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear the engines anymore. "Mom," she whispered through her oxygen mask. "It's gone now, right?" Evelyn forced a smile. "Yes, baby. It's gone." But she couldn't stop glancing at the window, searching for that light. It wasn't gone. She knew it wasn't. Up front, in the cockpit, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Warning lights blinked across the dashboard. Engine 2 unstable. Fuel imbalance. Unknown radar contact detected. Captain John's jaw tightened. Altitude 20,000 and dropping. We can't keep this steady for long. Robert leaned over the control panel. That thing, whatever it is, it's using some kind of jamming signal. It's interfering with your systems. The co-pilot turned. A drone. Robert shook his head. Too big. And too deliberate. The captain frowned. You think it's military? Robert hesitated. His voice dropped to a whisper. I've seen something like this before. Over Syria. Classified tech. Only. It was unmanned. The cockpit went silent. Just the hiss of the radio, the hum of the engines, and Robert's steady breathing. Then, faintly, a distorted voice crackled through the radio. This is Flight 227. Identify yourselves. Repeat. Identify yourselves. Captain John froze. That was their flight number. He looked at Robert. Did you hear that? Robert nodded slowly. They're mimicking us. Back in the cabin, the passengers were whispering, praying, trembling. The air smelled like metal and fear. Sophia peeked through the small gap between her seat and the window. And there it was again, the red light. Closer. So close she could see its outline now. A dark, sleek shape, no bigger than a car, but it moved like it was alive. It hovered beside the wing for a moment, then darted away so fast her eyes could barely follow. Mom, she gasped. It's back. Evelyn turned, heart racing. Where? Before Sophia could point, the plane dipped again. Overhead compartments burst open. Luggage flew through the air. People screamed. A coffee thermos slammed into the aisle. Michael, the flight attendant, fell to his knees, shouting, "Everyone stay down." The lights flickered again, once, twice, then came back in a dull red emergency glow. Everything felt unreal. Like the world was spinning too fast to hold on. In the cockpit, Captain John tried to regain control. Pulling back, stabilizing at 18,000, but then, another thud. Metal scraping against metal. Right wing hit, the co-pilot yelled. Robert's eyes narrowed. He grabbed the radar controls, switching frequencies manually. Static. Then, faintly, another voice. Stop transmission. You don't belong here. Robert's breath caught. Captain, we're being warned off. By who? John demanded. Before he could answer, something slammed into the side of the cockpit window. A flash of red light, a blur of metal, then it vanished again into the storm. Back in row 17, Sophia felt her whole seat shudder. The air was cold now, unnaturally cold. She could see her breath fogging inside the mask. And then she heard it. A faint tapping. Right on the glass beside her. Tap, tap, tap. She turned her head slowly, and her breath caught. A shape, human-like, but not quite, clung to the window. Its face pale, eyes dark, staring straight at her. For one frozen second, time stopped. Sophia couldn't move. Couldn't scream. The only sound was the pounding of her own heart. Then, it smiled. And the entire plane lurched downward. Mayday! Mayday! This is Flight 227, engines failing, request immediate. The radio cut out. The captain fought the controls, shouting commands. Robert slammed the emergency override. The plane was falling. And somewhere between the clouds and chaos, Sophia's voice echoed through the cabin. Mom, it saw me. Thought balloon, if you were Sophia, would you dare to look out the window again? Or would you keep your eyes shut until it was over? The plane was still falling. Gravity pressed Sophia into her seat. Loose papers spiraled through the red-lit cabin like ghosts. People were crying, praying, gripping strangers' hands, anything to hold on to something real. Then, a violent jerk. The engines screamed, sputtered, and finally caught again. The descent slowed. A heavy silence followed, that strange, trembling quiet that comes right after you've almost died. Sophia could barely breathe. Her tiny fingers clung to her mother's arm. Evelyn's lips were trembling, her eyes locked on the aisle. "Mom, what was that?" Evelyn shook her head, voice barely a whisper. "I don't know, sweetheart. But don't look outside again, okay?" Sophia nodded, but she didn't stop thinking about it. That face. Those eyes. That impossible, haunting smile. Up in the cockpit, chaos had turned to disbelief. "Altitude steady at 15,000, the co-pilot said shakily. "But we've lost half the navigation systems. Autopilot's offline." Captain John wiped the sweat from his brow. "We can still land manually. We just need clear weather." Robert cut him off. "Captain, listen." He adjusted the radio dial. A faint hum filled the cabin, rhythmic, mechanical, intentional. "It's not random interference," Robert said quietly. "It's transmitting a signal. Repeating coordinates." John frowned. "Coordinates to what?" Robert stared at the numbers glowing on the small green screen. His face paled. "An old military testing zone," he said. "Decommissioned years ago. Top secret. They used to run experimental flight projects there." "Projects?" the co-pilot echoed. Robert nodded. "Drones. Prototypes. Some controlled by humans. Some not." The captain looked at him sharply. "You think that's what's following us?" Robert didn't answer. He just looked out the cockpit window, and whispered, almost to himself, "We were never supposed to see it again." Back in the cabin, Michael the flight attendant tried to calm everyone. His hands shook as he handed out water bottles, forcing a smile. "We're stable now," he said. "The captain has everything under control." But his voice cracked halfway through the sentence. Evelyn looked up at him, eyes wide. "What's really happening?" Michael hesitated. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to tell the truth. But then he forced another nervous smile and moved on. Sophia pulled off her mask, breathing hard. "I heard something," she said softly. Her mom frowned. "What do you mean?" "I heard a voice. Outside. When it was close." Evelyn froze. "A voice." Sophia nodded. "It said my name." Her mother's breath caught. "Sophia, that's not possible." "I swear, Mom." "It said Sophia. It knew me." Evelyn's eyes filled with confusion and fear she tried to hide. She turned away quickly, clutching Sophia's hand tighter. But her pulse was racing. Because there was something she hadn't told her daughter. Up front, Robert studied the coordinates again, his jaw tight. "Captain, that zone. It's directly below us now." John blinked. "Below us?" "We're over the ocean." Robert's voice dropped. "Not exactly. They built a floating base years ago, a prototype hangar. Hidden from radar." Then the hum returned. Louder this time. Vibrating through the floor, through the walls, through their bones. Outside the cockpit, something massive moved through the clouds, a shadow larger than the plane itself. The radar went wild. And on the monitor, symbols began to appear. Strange, angular markings, like code. "Captain," the co-pilot whispered. "It's calling us." Robert leaned closer to the screen, eyes wide. "No. It's calling her." Back in the cabin, Sophia's window began to glow faintly blue. Her reflection shimmered, and in it, she could see not just her face, but something else. Something deep in the clouds, spinning with light. "Mom," she whispered. "It's coming back." Evelyn turned, and froze. Outside, the storm clouds were parting. And through them, a giant, circular object emerged, silent, gleaming, ancient-looking. Like a machine and a heartbeat at the same time. Sophia's eyes widened, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It's calling me again." Thought balloon. What do you think that voice wants from Sophia? And why her? Would you want to know the truth? Or keep pretending it's just the storm? No one spoke. The world outside the windows was glowing blue, a haunting, living light that seemed to breathe. Sophia sat frozen in her seat. The hum was louder now, vibrating through her ribs, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The circular object, that enormous ring of light, drifted closer until it filled the entire horizon. Every passenger stared, their faces lit in ghostly color. No one could look away. Even Evelyn couldn't move. She just whispered, "My God!" Up in the cockpit, the controls went dead. Every light, every switch, gone. Only the hum remained, and the faint voice that now filled the radio. A child's voice. "Sophia." Captain John turned sharply toward Robert. "Who's transmitting that?" Robert's face had gone pale. Not who, what. He turned the radio volume down. The sound didn't stop. It wasn't coming from the speakers anymore. It was coming from the air itself. The same rhythmic tone echoed through the metal walls, whispering her name again. "Sophia." Robert swallowed hard. "Captain, you need to get her up here." John frowned. "She's a kid." "I know," Robert said quietly. "But whatever that thing is, it's responding to her. Not to us." Michael, the flight attendant, hurried down the aisle, his face white as snow. "Evelyn, the captain needs your daughter in the cockpit." Evelyn's head snapped up. "What? No. She's just a child. Please," Michael said, trembling. "They said it's the only way." Sophia looked at her mother. For the first time, Evelyn didn't have words. Her hands shook as she unbuckled her daughter's seatbelt. "Stay close to me," she whispered. "I will," Sophia said softly, voice steady despite the terror. They made their way up the aisle, past rows of silent passengers, people who couldn't decide whether to pray or watch in awe. Every step felt like walking into a dream. When Sophia entered the cockpit, Robert turned slowly to look at her. His expression softened, almost fatherly. "Hi, Sophia," he said quietly. "You're very brave." The captain nodded. "We've lost all control. But whatever's outside, it's reacting to you. We need your help." Sophia hesitated. "I don't understand." Robert crouched beside her. "Sometimes, things that were built long ago remember the ones who built them. Maybe it's remembering you." Sophia frowned. "But I didn't build anything." Robert smiled faintly. "Maybe not in this lifetime." She didn't understand, but something inside her felt familiar. The hum seemed to rise as she stepped closer to the cockpit window. Outside, the massive ring of light began to rotate, slow and deliberate. A beam of blue light reached toward the plane, touching the nose of the aircraft like a finger of energy. "Captain," the co-pilot whispered. "It's scanning us." Robert looked at Sophia. "It's scanning her." The light filled the cockpit. Sophia's hair lifted gently in the charge. Her eyes reflected the blue glow, wide and calm. Then she spoke, softly, but not in English. A string of strange syllables, melodic and ancient, poured out of her like she'd always known them. Everyone froze. The hum stopped. The storm clouds vanished. For the first time in hours, silence. Robert's eyes filled with awe. "It's responding." She shut it down. The light around them dimmed. The ring began to rise higher into the clouds, fading into the night sky until it disappeared completely. The controls blinked back to life. Engines steady. Altitude restored. Sophia blinked, swayed slightly, and fell into her mother's arms. Evelyn held her tight, tears in her eyes. "What did you do?" Sophia whispered, half asleep. "It just wanted to go home." An hour later, the plane made an emergency landing. Paramedics rushed aboard. Reporters would later call it a technical malfunction, though none of the instruments could explain the readings recorded that night. Robert stayed behind, staring at the sky through the cockpit window. He knew what he'd seen. And he knew who that voice had been calling for. Sophia slept peacefully in her mother's arms as dawn broke across the horizon, unaware that somewhere above the clouds, something ancient had finally gone silent. But not gone. Never gone. Thought balloon, if something greater than us reached out, through fear, through chaos, would you listen, or look away? What do you think that voice really was?